Hello, and welcome to Is My Dataset Appropriate for the SAA Dataverse? This tutorial was created by members of SAA's Committee on Research Data and Assessment, or CORDA. The purpose of this video is to help you determine whether your dataset meets the requirements to be deposited in the Society of American Archivists Dataverse. Maybe you have existing data from a research project, or maybe you are going to be doing research and want to make sure that the resulting data is suitable to be deposited in the Dataverse. This video will follow along with the SAA Dataverse Collection Development Policy, so you may want to have a copy in front of you while you watch. If you have questions about what the SAA Dataverse is, check out our other video, What is the Dataverse, for a more detailed explanation of what the Dataverse is, its mission, and why it was created. But as a quick reminder, the SAA Dataverse was established to support the needs of the archives community by providing a space to deposit data about the profession and making it available for reuse in future research projects. Just as the archival repositories many of us work in have collection development policies that help us determine what we do and don't accept, the SAA Dataverse has a collection development policy that outlines guiding principles of the repository, collecting focus, submission requirements, accepted data formats, preservation standards that the repository follows, copyright and intellectual property rights for deposited data, and what happens if it is determined that data should be deaccessioned from the Dataverse. Now let's take a look at the guiding principles underlying the SAA Dataverse Collection Development Policy. In keeping with its mission, the Dataverse supports active data reuse and reevaluation on behalf of the archival community. This means that submitted data needs to be able to be shared without restrictions on its use in future research projects. In order to support its mission of access and reuse, the Dataverse will adhere to the FAIR, or FAIR, Guiding Principles for Scientific Data Management and Stewardship. The acronym FAIR stands for Findable, Accessible, Interoperable, and Reusable. Describing your dataset in as much detail as possible will make your dataset easy to find for both humans and computers. Once users find the data they are looking for, they need to be able to access the data and associated metadata. Depositing your data in widely accepted data formats increases interoperability, meaning that it can be integrated with other data as well as with applications and workflows being used in the research process. Data and metadata should be well described so that they can be replicated or reused for other purposes. The SAA Dataverse systems, policies, and procedures align with standards for trustworthy digital repositories by providing long-term data archiving, bit-level preservation, and data sharing to foster analysis, reuse, and reinterpretation. The SAA, the data and associated metadata and other documentation must have clear potential value to at least one of the following communities: the archives and records profession in North America, the Society of American Archivists, including groups within SAA, such as committees and sections, archival repositories, individual professional archivists or archival scholars. To this end, SAA welcomes, or in some cases requires, submission of data from the following groups. SAA requires that all SAA-sponsored data be deposited in the Dataverse. This includes data collected by the SAA Council, component groups like committees and roundtables, work supported by SAA funding, and selected materials related to the research forum. The SAA Dataverse accepts data from individual archival repositories if it is of interest or use beyond that repository, such as reference statistics that can be compared with similar data from other institutions or compiled into a larger data set for analysis. Individual archivists and archival scholars who collect data of broad interest to the profession are welcome to submit it to the Dataverse. SAA encourages authors who publish their research in the American Archivist to add any data collected during the course of their research to the Dataverse. SAA will prioritize data identified by and solicited for deposit by the Committee on Research Data and Assessment for inclusion in the SAA Dataverse repository. So what does your dataset need to include to be accepted in the SAA Dataverse? In order to ensure that your dataset follows the guiding principles discussed earlier, the data and associated documentation must adhere to SAA Dataverse terms of use and data deposit form. Submissions will be reviewed by members of a subcommittee of the Committee on Research, Data, and Assessment. Review does not include an assessment of the research methodology. However, information about the methodology used, as well as the origins of the dataset and any analyses or reports derived from the data, are required for submission. Any contextual information necessary to understand the data, such as README files or checklists, should also be included. Data and associated documentation can take the form of tabular data, including Excel, CSV files, and tab delimited files, as well as formats associated with statistical software like R, Stata, and SPSS. Image files like JPEG, PNG, and TIFF, geospatial files, and other file types that are widely accepted can be converted and are non-proprietary or open source, like PDF and others. The submitter must remove all personally identifiable information from the data associated documentation prior to ingest into the repository. We have a video that goes into further detail about everything that should be included with your data for submission to the SAA Dataverse, or you can check out the SAA Dataverse data package instructions and metadata worksheet. Regarding preservation of data submitted to the repository, the SAA Dataverse is hosted by the Odum Institute for Research in Social Science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, whose mission is to provide long-term data archiving and data sharing. The Odum Institute systems, policies, and procedures have been developed in alignment with standards for trustworthy digital repositories. These standards are outlined in ISO 14721, Reference Model for an Open Archival Information System, or OAIS, and ISO 16263, Audit and Certification of Trustworthy Digital Repositories. The SAA Dataverse offers bit-level preservation of deposited items and ensures that deposited items will be retained as long as the Dataverse is in existence. Links to the relevant digital preservation standards mentioned above and to the Odum Institute's digital preservation policies are available in the slide deck. The SAA Dataverse is authorized to distribute all datasets and associated documentation uploaded to the repository. Uploaded materials will be made freely available for distribution and use in other research via a Creative Commons license. Submission to the SAA Dataverse does not preclude data and associated documentation from being uploaded to another repository, as long as permissions and copyright allow. For more in-depth information related to licensing and copyright of materials deposited in the SAA Dataverse, the SAA Dataverse deposit form and terms of use are two great resources. As I mentioned earlier, data and documentation uploaded to the SAA Dataverse will be published and preserved for the lifetime of the repository. Records will only be deaccessioned from the Dataverse if there is a legal or otherwise valid reason for the dataset not to be available to the public. Depending on the extent of the issue, a version of the dataset or the entire dataset may need to be deaccessioned. If a record was published in the Dataverse for any length of time, a tombstone page will remain, indicating its removal. Submitters must work with CORDA to deaccession data or records from the SAA Dataverse. Reviewing all SAA Dataverse policies and ensuring compliance before depositing and publishing your data ensures that deaccessioning is only necessary in rare cases. While you are considering whether or not your dataset is appropriate for the Dataverse, CORDA is available for consultation if you have any questions as you work through the submission process. Thank you.